Do we think that Coon is problematic in Season 3? We currently just got done reading Chapter 612 of Tower of God, but this is more broadly applying to Coon as a character. Is he in a good place in the story? Is he developing enough? Are we still interested in the character? Or do we have a lot of questions for SIU? I went into chapter 611 a little bit scared because I did see Coon's name floating around social media and I saw some disappointment regarding the chapter. But when I read it, I walked away feeling pretty happy about what happened with Coon. So I wanted to make this video to address some things people have said and if my stance has kind of changed on the chapter, what we think about Coon as a character overall, and if it's even affected by what went down in that chapter. Let's just get this part out of the way. Coon generally always relies on Bomb as a character. Coon's growth and development and motivations and goals are always shifting and changing because of Bomb. Bomb is that pure light, we've talked about this a lot on the channel, that like unique factor in the story that changes the characters around him because he hasn't experienced the tower like everybody else has, and so Coon is always connected to Bomb in that very like personal way. But it seems as though a lot of the things that made Coon interesting, a lot of the things that have changed, like seeing Coon's ice powers developing on the hidden floor, we don't really see that in Season 3. Instead, he's been kind of just given a lot of Deus Ex Machina moments and Deus Ex Machina powers that let him escape and get out of these like precarious situations, of which he's very often thrown into. Like I'll just put a bunch of them on screen, but I think the recent chapter was a bigger deal for people because it seemed as though Coon gained this ability, this spell white ability out of nowhere. But let's break down what the ability actually is. I could be wrong about some of this stuff, it's just kind of my off the top thoughts on the matter. But basically, Coon absorbed part of White's power alongside Bomb and Rack after the White versus Bomb fight during the Gakta Doseng arc. And because Coon worked with White during the Nest arc and was able to use the Sweet Fish to help buff White and collect a bunch of these souls from the battlefield, all these like generic people who are dying, he gathered them up for White and then White was able to consume them, combining the fact that Coon had knowledge of that with the Sweet Fish and with White's power, all three of these factors, now Coon is able to use that White spell to sort of counter Dumas in that moment and kind of seal up his body and allow them to enter his armor, and we find out that that spell stopped Dumas's heart. So some people think it's kind of lame that Coon can just use this spell out of nowhere, and I do get it. You know, I'm always the first one to be a little bit skeptical of when characters get power-ups that aren't earned. I know some people thought the same when Coon got the Sweet Fish, for example, right? And we kind of got used to the Sweet Fish, but the same thing applies to Bomb. I mean, I saw people complaining about Bomb just earning the souls out of nowhere. People complained that Bomb versus Joaquin in the Dollar Show was a Deus Ex Machina because Albelda, or the final clone, just gives Bomb all those souls, and then wow, now he can beat Joaquin. How, you know, he didn't earn it, right? But you can apply the same thing to Bomb getting the Red Thrissa out of nowhere, Bomb getting Leviathan out of nowhere. There's just tons and tons of things that Bomb is just kind of receiving without tons of build up. Regardless, now it's Coon's turn. So not only does Coon have this Sweet Fish in Season 3, but now he's just whipping out White spells. Here's my take on this. Like I described earlier, the fact that Coon was present and the fact that Coon was the one that was directly gathering the souls and powering up White explains a lot here. I don't think, and I'm pretty sure this is heavily implied, I don't think that if Coon had the Sweet Fish, he would be able to do the White spell, right? The entire thing is that he's combining the two powers. Just like earlier during the Nest, Coon's Sweet Fish was gathering up souls, so we already knew it had this soul-like ability, and it was basically gathering them up for White to then consume. So Coon has this like soul-gathering ability already with just the Sweet Fish, but now he has White's power. Combine them together, and it's what we already saw at the Nest. That's why, to me, it's not that much of a stretch. And in fact, it's kind of cool because it's tying back to that moment where Coon and White interacted and did this kind of shady, sketchy thing. It implies and it kind of leads to some interesting things for Coon's character. I know he's supposed to be dead, but we all know he's not. So Coon as a character with this kind of soul-sucking ability, it's pretty interesting. Like, I don't think he's gonna keep the Sweet Fish forever. I know a lot of people say he's never gonna have any consequence, even though the comic says he will, but I think he will. It's just gonna take a lot of time. SIU is a very long-term author. He takes his time with a lot of these things, and it can be frustrating in the moment when you're not binging the series. but I do think there's room for a lot of interesting things. And the fact that Coon used that ability to help take down Dumas in that moment, or help kind of like restrain him, allow them to enter the armor, I would so much rather that was the case than Bomb whips out some crazy new ability or powers up and does it himself. We just got done with the rack segment, which was great, and now we have this Coon segment, albeit I wish there was more build-up, but it's cool to me. Like, the rule of cool kind of overtakes it, and it's not, I don't know if it's just me, I don't know if it's just my brain that is like, oh my god, it's so cool, but genuinely trying to kind of piece it together, the second that I took a look at the components of what Coon is doing, right, he's taking the Sweet Fish plus White's power, it's not a stretch to me. Like, in my mind, what's more egregious is just the fact that Coon obtained White's ability in the first place. The fact that he obtained his power in the first place during Bomb vs. White, Gaktra Dosang stuff. You guys know I've talked about it. That, to me, if there's an issue, it's that. This is just taking that moment and making it count. It's as a story saying, okay, we already did this thing, you might not love it, but we gave Coon and Rack White's power, and now they're using it. You know what I mean? Like, that to me, I'd rather have that than you kind of already do that thing that's a little egregious and then not do something cool with it. At least they're using it to some kind of cool endgame or cool conclusion and tying it with Dumas. I don't know. To me, it's kind of cool. Now, don't get me wrong. I do feel like Coon having these power-ups is not as cool as earlier in the series when he was scheming, and that was why he was an important character. He's still scheming and stuff, but it's the setting. I've seen people comment this as well. The setting currently is a great family war. The past couple hundred chapters have been focused on like Traumarai, Gustang, craziness, building up to this, you know, giant climactic war that's happening with these high rankers. And so I feel like in the current landscape, Coon's strategic ability, if you're going to keep him in danger like SIU loves to do, you gotta let him have at least a couple of these moments. It hasn't been that bad. Coon hasn't had a ton. Usually he gets saved by somebody. I'm actually really glad that he actually is the one to maybe have a couple moments where he can show off a bit of power too. Is it ideal? No, it's not ideal. I wish there was more buildup in some of these cases, but it's a lot better than Bomb doing it all, you know? And I think considering where we are in the story, whether you like it or not, it is kind of necessary for our main characters to have these moments to stay relevant. Now, the overarching issue is the fact that on the development side of things are slow with Coon. I don't think they're dead. I know some people are like not at all interested in Coon right now, and I can't blame them, right? Coon as a character for me has fallen down in the rankings, just partially because of that kind of lack of feeling like he's that important to the story. He's needing to get rescued a lot. He doesn't have as much strategic sway, and when he does, I'm not as into it as I used to be. But at the same time, I do feel like, again, SIU's a long game author. We know that the Maria plotline is very occasionally being mentioned and referenced. I don't think it's dead. Like, I don't feel like SIU is just like, whatever, I'm not gonna do stuff with Maria anymore. It's just that he's taking a lot of time to develop the family heads, develop this conflict with the families, and it leaves Coon in a weird spot where he's not gonna be like Wangnan, where he's not in the story. He still has to be there, he's still there, he's contributing, but how can he contribute? Well, right now, it's in this way. It's setting up for the Sweet Fish way later, whenever that ends up being bad for Coon's character. It's all set up, you know? And the fact that we're reading it week by week by week, it makes it difficult to see, but I'm not that worried because I'm willing to be patient. And the fact that I see what they did with Coon in that moment with Dumas and I'm not bothered by it, it means that I'm willing to be patient with the overall theme and story and arc for Coon. I know it's gonna happen, bro. I know SIU has plans. We just have to be patient. I know they're coming. I don't know if that makes sense. We're in a part of the story that's very shonen-esque, and I'm hoping we can eventually go back to some of that season 2 a bit slower, not as crazy high ranker battle beams everywhere. Then I think that'll be a great opportunity for there to be tension and very interesting story twists and revelations that don't just rely on, oh my god, we're facing a stronger opponent. I think that will happen in the future. It's just not now, you know. SIU has a different goal for the current point in the story, and Coon does suffer because of it. But that's exactly why I love the moment with Dumas. I think it makes a lot of sense for Coon, and I'd rather have that than some other BS reason for the trio to have a chance at stopping Dumas. Hope you enjoyed the video. It was a bit more all over the place because my thoughts kind of all coming together at once, but leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this because I'm sure you disagree with me on a lot of the stuff I mentioned, so I'd love to dive deeper into it and get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on with Coon's character. But yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace!